In your mighty name, Jesus. Amen. I'd like to hand over to Pastor Lee.
Thank you, Nicole. Perhaps I will use yours. No, I'm all good. Well, welcome to another in our series about King David. As you heard a moment ago, we're up to part 5 of the King David series. And today my topic is friendship. Friendship. And in this one, we're going to look, of course, at that great relationship between Jonathan and David. Out of all the passages in the scriptures, actually, this is one of the outstanding chapters about friendship. Let me read the first section here. 1 Samuel 20, in the first 4 verses, it says, Then David fled from Naioth to Ramah and went to Jonathan and asked, What have I done? What is my crime? How have I wronged your father that he is trying to kill me? Never, Jonathan replied. You're not going to die. Look, my father doesn't do anything great or small without letting me know. Why should he hide this from me? It isn't so. But David took an oath and said, Your father knows very well I've found favour in your eyes. And he has said to himself, Jonathan must not know this, or he will be grieved. Yet as surely as the Lord lives, and as you live, there is only a step between me and death. Then Jonathan said to David, Whatever you want me to do, I'll do for you. Whatever you want me to do, I'll do for you. What a great friendship statement that is. Let me apply it. Number 1, genuine friends will do whatever they can to help you. Genuine friends will do whatever they can to help you. Now, looking at the words in the previous chapter, you might be a bit puzzled that Jonathan didn't know that his father wanted to kill David. But David had a conversation, as recorded in that chapter, and he felt that they'd come to an agreement. And this is actually the quote. I'll quote a portion of it, last chapter, 1 Samuel 19:6. Saul listened to Jonathan and took this oath, As surely as the Lord lives, David will not be put to death. And so Jonathan is thinking, okay, no, we've talked about it. My father's all right now. He's not going to pursue this end anymore. But actually he is. He just hasn't told Jonathan. So friends, Let's move on to this next little portion. This is a lovely little passage too, 25 through 11. So David said, Look, tomorrow is the new moon feast, and I am supposed to dine with the king, but let me go and hide in the field until the evening of the day after tomorrow. If your father misses me at all, tell him, David earnestly asked my permission to hurry to Bethlehem, his hometown, because an annual sacrifice is being made there for his whole clan. If he says very well, then your servant is safe. But if he loses his temper, you can be sure he is determined to harm me. As for you, show kindness to your servant, for you have brought him into a covenant with you before the Lord. If I am guilty, then kill me yourself. Why hand me over to your father? Never, Jonathan said. If I had the least inkling that my father was determined to harm you, wouldn't I tell you? David asked, Who will tell me if your father answers you sharply? Come, Jonathan said, let's go into the field. So they went together. And they continue to talk about it. And the most natural reading of that passage is they went for a long walk in the field together. One of the best ways actually of often dealing with a situation which David is obviously pretty distressed about what's going on. King Saul commands thousands of troops. If he wants David dead, it's not going to be easy for David. The chances of him surviving are very, very slim. One of the best things to do when you're in that moment of emotional stress, go for a long walk and talk about it with a friend. And that's exactly what Jonathan says. Come, let's go to the field together. You can see David's distressed. Let's go for a long walk. Let's talk about it together. Can I suggest this? Point number 2, genuine friends make time for you. Number 2, genuine friends make time for you. And we capture a little bit of their conversation while they're walking together. Some of it's recorded for us. 1 Samuel 20:12, it says this. Then Jonathan said to David, I swear by the Lord. I want you to notice how many times the Lord is mentioned in this passage. Then Jonathan said to David, I swear by the Lord, the God of Israel, that I will surely send out my father by this time, the day after tomorrow. If he is favourably disposed towards you, will I not send you word and let you know? But if my father intends to harm you, may the Lord deal with me, be it ever so severely, if I do not let you know and send you away in peace. May the Lord be with you, as he has been with my father. But show me unfailing kindness, like the Lord's kindness, as long as I live, so that I may not be killed, and do not cut off your kindness from my family, not even when the Lord has cut off every one of David's enemies from the face of the earth. You get what Jonathan's saying there? He's saying, look, I think Jonathan believes that the time will come and David will be king. And he's saying, but could you be kind to my family? You know, don't wipe out the house of Saul or whatever when you become king. And of course, David has no intention of doing that. But Jonathan's wanting to firm that up. Number 3, can I suggest this? Genuine friends make God central to their relationship. Number 3, genuine friends make God central to their relationship. In that passage, just a few short verses, God's mentioned so many times. You can see how very much a part of a foundation of Jonathan and David's relationship is their commitment to the one true God. I want to make the suggestion, friends, not that we shouldn't be friends with those who are unchurched, absolutely, but it would make sense, wouldn't it, that your 2 or 3 closest friends are also believers in the Lord. Verse 20:16 says, so Jonathan made a covenant. Sue was talking about covenant today. So Jonathan made a covenant with the house of David, saying, may the Lord call David's enemies to account. And Jonathan made David reaffirm his oath of love for him because he loved him as he loved himself. Point number 4, genuine friends love each other. Genuine friends love each other. Sound too soppy for you? A band that I have listened to a lot and continue to do so actually is an old hip-hop band called DC Talk. Let's have a look at the lads here when they were young. They were a 3-piece hip-hop band, and later they moved into more of an alternative rock trio. So it's Toby Mac, Kevin Max and Michael Tate. Michael Tate's now the singer of Newsboys. Those guys write some great songs, and one of them is this one, Say the Words, it's titled. Let me read a few words about it. It's about love. The word love, well, it was once overused. Back in the 70s, the word was abused, but I refuse to let love be diluted. We can't allow physical lust to intrude it or pollute it, because there ain't no excuse for the greatest gift of all to be abused. So choose to lose the pride that may tug at you. Don't be afraid of the words, I love you. And the song is all about that. It's about saying, let's get into the pattern of saying, I love you. It's a very much a Christian thing to do. And one of the things I do need to just spend a little bit of time on here is, of course, there are some gay activists who will say that David and Jonathan had a gay relationship. But actually there is no evidence whatsoever in the Bible of that. And they had a deep, close friendship, absolutely. You remember the Lord of the Rings and that third one, the Return of the King, got a heap of Academy Awards. And obviously actors and so forth were interviewed about their thoughts of the film, those who played various roles. Gay actor Ian McKellen, Gandalf, he states that he thought more should have been made of Frodo and Sam's gay relationship. That was his comment. I've seen him say it. I've seen the interview. And the producer-director, Peter Jackson, he was furious. He just said, this is ridiculous. Why can't 2 blokes be mates, close mates? He's in New Zealand, so he says mates like Aussies do. Why can't 2 blokes just be mates? What is this all about? I've tried to stay true to Tolkien's original intended meanings in the story, and there's absolutely no way that was what he intended. Now, I know that you might say, well, but doesn't it say later in this chapter that David and Jonathan kissed each other? Absolutely, it does, verse 41. But I had a Jewish friend who used to live around the corner from me, he used to be a member of my church, lead one of my Bible study groups actually. His name was Peter Nathan. And so he would sometimes have us over for lunch, Pamela and I. And this is how Peter would greet me. I'd come, knock on the door, they'd open it up. The first thing Peter would do, he'd hug me and then he'd slap a kiss either side of my cheek. That's very Jewish to do that, you know, so that is part of their culture. Others might say, yeah, but do you think the Bible's hiding stuff about their relationship? Well, the honest reality of the scriptures is that it never hides the weaknesses of the heroes. You think, for the Jewish nation, the person they think is kind of heralded more than anyone else is Moses, the absolute hero. And yet the scripture is honest that when Moses was 40 years old, he murdered a guy and he took off to Midian, so he got away with it. He never suffered any consequences for that murder. And yet the Bible's completely honest about that. This idea the Bible's not real and honest about its heroes, it's just the only person who can come to that conclusion is someone who hasn't really read it very much. And we're going to see later in this series about David, the scriptures are also very honest about his failings. Next passage, 1 Samuel 20:30, it says, "The Lord's anger flared up at Jonathan, and he said to him, 'You son of a perverse and rebellious woman, don't I know that you have sided with the son of Jesse to your own shame and to the shame of......'" One, two, yes, we are. Let me start that passage again. Fresh microphone. 1 Samuel 20:30. "Saul's anger flared up at Jonathan, and he said to him, 'You son of a perverse and rebellious woman, don't I know that you have sided with the son of Jesse to your own shame and to the shame of the mother who bore you? As long as the son of Jesse lives on this earth, neither you nor your kingdom will be established. Now, send for someone to bring him to me, for he must die.'" You get what he's saying? That while Jesse lives, you, Jonathan, my firstborn, you're never going to be king. Unless we deal with this David, you're not going to be on the throne. And the interesting thing to me is, as much as I'm not saying that Jonathan is unambitious, but he's put his friendship before ambition. You'll notice that? Number 5, genuine friends never choose personal ambition over their relationship. Genuine friends never choose personal ambition over their relationship. There's every reason for John to feel like, well, actually, yeah, this David's a threat to my kingdom, the house of Saul. But he never acts like that. 1 Samuel 20:32. "Why should he be put to death? What has he done?" Jonathan asked his father. But Saul hurled a spear at him to kill him. Then Jonathan knew that his father intended to kill David. Kind of got the imagery? So he's talking with his father, reasoning with him, and in that fit of anger, his dad picks up a spear, hurls it at the wall as if the wall is David, to emphasise, I'm killing the dude, And Jonathan realises, no, there's no calming down his anger. He means to go through with killing David. We also find in the previous chapter, 19:4-6, Jonathan spoke well of David to his father and said to him, "Let not the king do wrong to his servant David. He has not wronged you, and what he has done has benefited you greatly. He took his life into his hands when he killed the Philistine. The Lord won a great victory for all of Israel, and you saw it and were glad. Why then would you do wrong to an innocent man like David by killing him for no reason?" You'll notice that Jonathan regularly spoke in favour of David, tried to reason with his father about him. And can I suggest here we see another pattern? Number 6, genuine friends speak in your defence, no matter who the critic is. Genuine friends speak in your defence, no matter who the critic is. His father's not just anyone, he's a very powerful king. And yet he still speaks with confidence and reason to try and persuade him. Good question to ask yourself. Are you silent as you hear a friend unjustly criticised? Are you silent when you hear a friend unjustly criticised? Good question to ask ourselves. 1 Samuel 20:34. Jonathan got up from the table in fierce anger on that second day of the feast. He did not eat because he was grieved at his father's shameful treatment of David. Can I suggest this? Number 7. Genuine friends are angered and grieved when their mates are unfairly treated. Genuine friends are angered and grieved when their mates are unfairly treated. Moving to 20:41, it says, after the boy had gone, David got up from the south side of the stone and bowed down before Jonathan 3 times with his face to the ground. Then they kissed each other and wept together. David wept the most. Jonathan said to David, go in peace, for we have sworn friendship with each other in the name of the Lord, saying, the Lord is witness between you and me, and between your descendants and my descendants forever. Then David left, and Jonathan went back to the town. It's a powerful moment there. In David's distress, he starts to cry because, the report is, my father does definitely want to kill you. You're going to have to flee. You're going to have to hide. You're going to be in isolation. Your life is under the most serious threat. And as David cries, so does Jonathan. You remember that it's the shortest verse in the Bible, isn't it? You remember the one in John 11:35? Jesus wept. Just 2 words in our English translation. Jesus wept. Shortest verse in the Bible. And when did Jesus weep? Well, one of his friends had died and the family are weeping. They're upset. They're crying. And Jesus cries along with them. Can I suggest this? Number 8, last point. Genuine friends empathise with each other. Genuine friends empathise with each other. Let me recap on the points we've looked at today. 8 points. 1, genuine friends will do whatever they can to help you. 2, make time for you. 3, make God central to your relationship. And 4, love each other. Genuine friends, 5, never choose personal ambition over their relationship. 6, speak in your defence no matter who the critic is. 7, are angered and grieved when their mates are unfairly treated. And 8, empathise with each other. Wow, wouldn't that be great to pray that into the life of our church more and more? That we could offer genuine friendship to one another. Wonderful principles there in that passage. Can I suggest this? Jesus wants us to live these companionship principles in our church community, but also to take something of this friendship into the world. In my church in Sydney, Dural Baptist, we got a preacher out called Tony Campolo for 2 weekends and the week in between. There he is, recently passed away. So if you haven't heard of Tony Campolo, who's heard of him? Who knows of him? Yeah, I knew a few people would have to have done a lot of preaching around the world. He's a professor of sociology, author of many best-selling Christian books, and we had him out, I guess, really, just to fire up members of our church, but also as evangelistic outreach. So one of the nights we had Steve Grace, remember that artist? He and his band out, and Tony would preach the evangelistic event. We had about 2,000 people there, and a number made first-time commitments to Christ. It was a great outreach. But he was a great guy, having him preach a whole variety of things at our church, and our youth and young adults. A number of them made recommitments too, and some first-time commitments, which was wonderful also. But one of the most special times with Tony, he decided he would spend some time. We had 6 pastors in the church, which I was one of them, and so he wanted to just spend some time with us. And so about 2.5 hours, we just sat around together, telling stories and praying for each other. It was a great time. And he had some cracking stories. Actually, at the time, he was the mentor to one of the mentors to President Bill Clinton, who was in power at the time. And so he had some stories about Bill too, but I won't tell those. I won't share those with you. But I will share this story with you. He shared that sometimes he lived in Philadelphia, Tony Campolo, and he would sometimes fly to Honolulu to do speaking engagements. And he kind of, there's various zones of jet lag, and he said that was one where if he was preaching in Honolulu, he'd wake up at about 2 a.m. and he would not go back to sleep. So he knew that was the pattern. So usually about 2, he'd just get up and he thought, I'll just go out to a cafe or something. And so he's wandering around about 2:30 in the morning, spots a cafe that's open, a bit of a seedy part of town actually, wanders in and anyway, sits down at the cafe table and he looks at the menu. He was about to open it, but he said, as I looked at it with food splattered all over it, I thought, actually, if I open this thing, I wonder if something extraterrestrial will come out and bite me. So I might leave it shut. So I better just order something simple. So he said to the guy there at the place, he's a big fella. He's a overweight guy, really overweight and unshaven and a bit greasy looking, the guy who owned the place. Anyway, he thought, I'll just have a coffee and a donut, he says to the chap. And he was hoping, when he gave him the donut, popped it on the plate, he was hoping he would use tongs. But he didn't. He kind of wiped his hand on his very greasy-looking apron and picked up the donut. And Tony felt he squeezed that donut far harder than what he needed to and popped it on the plate. And so here's Tony about 3 a.m, drinking his coffee and eating his greasy, dirty donut. And he said, when all of a sudden, the doors opened and about 8 or 9 prostitutes came in. And they've all sat up the front where Tony was as well. And he said, I'm feeling incredibly uncomfortable. They're pretty loud, some of these prostitutes, and they're sitting all around me. And one of them, her name was Agnes. And Agnes speaks up at one point and says, it's my 39th birthday tomorrow. And one of the other girls says, well, why are you telling us? We're not going to throw you a party or anything. What are we going to do about it? And Agnes said, I know, I wasn't expecting a party. I'm just saying I'm turning 39 tomorrow. Anyway, the girls are there for about 20 minutes or so and then they shoot off. And Tony gets an idea. He says to the guy who owns the place, the girls in like every night around this time. And he said, pretty much. He said, could I throw Agnes a party? She's never had a party. Could I throw her a party? No, you don't need to do anything. I'll go buy the streamers and balloons and I'll set it all up. Harry, the guy who owns the cafe, Harry looks slightly puzzled and then he says, hey, Jan, come out here. Jan, calls his wife out. This fella wants to throw Agnes a party. And again, Tony feeling like, oh, she might be not happy because she might think she has to go to some work to get this organised. He said, oh, you don't need to do anything. I'll organise everything. I'll get the cake. And Harry says, oh, no, you don't get the cake. I'm making the cake. That's mine. So the night comes round. Now, Jan knew some of Agnes's friends and she'd called them up. And so there was a bunch of them there. 3 o'clock came and the doors open and Agnes comes in. And a crowd of people say, happy birthday, Agnes. And Campolo says, I have never seen anyone look so shocked in my life. Her jaw just dropped open like it does in the cartoons. just drop open. And she stared. And she was ushered over to her little spot with the cake in front of her. And Harry says, go on, Agnes, blow out the candles. Come on, Agnes, blow them out. But she's quite choked up with emotion. And she can't get any breath out. She's, no wind. And so Harry says, oh, look, I'll blow them out for you. And then he hands her a knife and says, go on, Agnes, cut the cake. Cut the cake, Agnes. And then she pauses for a moment. And she says, do you mind if I don't cut the cake. Could I just carry this over to my mum's place? She's just like 2 doors away. I just want to show her that I've been given a birthday cake. I'll be back real soon. Could I do that? And of course they say, oh, sure, of course. So she wanders off, leaves her own party. Everyone's very quiet. They don't know what to say. So Campolo says, let's pray together. And some of them looked at him like he just swore. So he just prays. He prays for Agnes, prays kind of for the gathering, and then in his prayer he shares the gospel of Jesus Christ. And then Harry says to him after he's finished praying, he says, oh, I can see you're a preacher. What sort of churches do you preach in? And Campolo says, at that moment, I think I got a word. I think I got a word from the Holy Spirit because I had a great answer. I said to him, I preach in the sort of churches that throw parties at 3 a.m. for 39-year-old prostitutes. Now, Tony, finished his preaching campaign there and back off to Philadelphia and then on to his next job. So it's not like he got to know Agnes or anything. But Agnes saw something of Jesus' friendship, didn't she? She saw the friendship that Jesus places as he reaches out to people. His example of friendship. Remember Jesus, what was said about Jesus? Matthew 11:19. He was called a friend of tax collectors and sinners. And of course, tax collectors were some of the most socially outcast people of the day. 39-year-old prostitutes are too. One thing being a young prostitute, another thing being an old one. I wonder, should we be rubbing shoulders a little bit more with people from the community? Actually, Andrew here, he had a great vision. I like this vision. He talked about it with the leadership team one week. Wallert, where he lives, has got some great parks, really nice, new, funky parks. And a lot of them have the gas barbecues there. And he said, what if we went out there and did a free barbecue, free sausage sizzle, and just talk with some people? I've done a bit of that sort of thing before. What would it look like? Well, it's not a big, like we've done the Bunnings one. It's not like where you sell thousands of sausages. It's just, you don't have to make many. It's only a little groups of people come along. But get a couple of the church roadside signs, print out 2 of the A3 things, one saying free sausage sizzle and saying what time it's going to be, sort of thing. Just so people think, oh, it's on now. And a couple of people there at the barbecue. You don't have to bring a barbecue. It's all just sitting there. Just have to get early enough so you get one. And make a bit of noise as well, We've got plenty of speakers at the church, haven't we? Bring down a couple of speakers, a couple of microphones. Belt out a few tunes. You can do that with backing tracks, easy enough, it's no problem. I'd be happy to do that. I'm sure Lisa would be happy to do that. Perhaps Dom would be happy to do that. There might be some others. So you're making a bit of noise, that gets attention. You've got a couple of signs up saying what's going on. You've got the smell of sausages in the air. And then you've got people like Andrew or Hugo going around. They've got a few flyers about the church. They've got some Bridge of Life tracts if they want to explain the gospel to someone. Chatting with people as they come over. I don't know. I like Andrew's vision. Yeah, I just love to think that more people in the community would know something of the friendship of Jesus. And Wallert's a great spot because a lot of people have just moved in. They don't know people in the area at all. They don't have community yet. You know who I reckon would pray into this really well? Sue, come on, pray for it. Thank you, Steve.